Business community has lauded former Minister Pravin Gordhan as a steadfast leader. The 75-year-old who passed away this morning has been praised for his role as a former SARS commissioner, finance minister, as well as public enterprises minister. Business Leadership South Africa has described Gordhan as a man who put the country first. BLSA CEO Busi Mavuso joins us for this conversation. Thank you so much for your time. First, one of the characterizations that has been quite prominent is a steadfast in Minister Gordhan. Talk us through your experience of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when you look at his legacy, when you look at the work that the man has done, when you look at the legacy that he leaves behind, I think the SARS as we know it today, its systems, its efficiency, it being one of the strong institutions in South Africa is precisely because of, Pravin Gordhan. He turned this institution into a robust institution that regularly outperformed its budgets, and it played a fundamental role in stabilizing the country's finances post-apartheid. He did a sterling job as the Minister of Finance. You would not always agree with his views, but you knew that his intentions were unquestionable. He bore the brunt of trying to save the South African purse, during the state capture project. He endured scars of doing the right thing, or rather because of doing the right thing, in trying to ensure, that the state capture brigade doesn't actually decimate the South African economy. Was it not for him, the state capture impact in South Africa would have been worse. And I think that is very interesting because he really had what we lack in leadership today. Pravin Gordhan was not a pleaser, because very often you find a lot of leaders who try to please, and we know that if you want to change things, you can't please everyone. And if you are pleasing everyone, then you are not making enough progress. I really think that he served South Africa the best way he knew how, and he really epitomized what public service ought to be. I really think that they don't make politicians, public servants, the way they made him. What attracts public servants and some politicians to politics and to government today are things probably that are not in line with the servant leadership that we'd like to see. And you know that in Pravin, you actually, had that. You might not always agree with him, as I've said, but you know that his heart was in the right place. So he really lives a legacy to Misang of being deeply committed, being deeply passionate, and being deeply patriotic about South Africa and wanting to see South Africa succeed.
And that speaks to the bold nature in which that he tackled both the private sector as well as government in his time in several roles in office. What's to be said really about the manner in which the man dealt with everyone on a slate that was at the same time looking for that equilibrium that would not be so much criticized as taking sides, even though that subsequently it became exactly that?
Absolutely. I think we had a lot of engagements, with him as BLSA, and he was always willing to talk. He was always willing to argue his point, as well as listen to others. And obviously, throughout his career, we had engagements where we actually did not agree. But as I said, you actually could not fault him on his drive to try and make South Africa succeed. As I said, we didn't always agree with how he went around, doing things. He was obviously a micromanager. We always wanted to try and influence directly what needed to happen. And maybe that was his way, of trying to stave off the wolves, of trying to make sure, that the project at hand or the interventions at hand do actually succeed. But in him, we've definitely lost a great politician and leader, that this country had.
The greatest lesson to be taken out of that, Busi, in the characterization of former Minister Gordhan, what should it be as we highlight on the life of the man as a politician, but at the same time, the life of a stalwart?
I think for me, the great lesson, is the importance of standing for something, the importance of choosing a side, the importance of making a decision, even if not everyone agrees with you. The importance of being decisive. And I think in Pravin, you definitely had that, and I don't know how confident he was about all the decisions that he took, as a minister. I don't know how confident he was when he took the SAA decision, and I know that that one probably maybe sort of like blew up in his face, but he made the decision nevertheless. Because to me, the worst thing, about decision making, you'd rather make a wrong decision and try and recover from it, rather than making no decision, and you wouldn't have, Pravin Gordhan being indecisive. So he always took a stand, he always stood for something, he always chose a side, he always, was very clear, in terms of where he stood. And you wouldn't be confused as someone dealing with him in terms of where he stands and where you stand with him. And I think that is very important for leadership today and for the young people who are coming into leadership for tomorrow.
Thank you so much for your time and input in this discussion. Busi Mavuso is the CEO of Business Leadership South Africa.